Hi, I'm Dr. Bill Thomas. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person today, but it's for a reason that I think a lot of you will understand. I'm acting as a family caregiver, as many of you do and will, and it is, I think, something that the people of Singapore understand very well, the importance of family. And so I did take some time out to record this video for you because I did want to communicate some of the ideas that I was preparing to bring with me to Singapore. And I wanted to be able to share them with you. And the thing I'll really be missing would be the questions and answers, because I was really looking forward to this trip as an opportunity for me to learn, an opportunity for me to observe. And I'm really hopeful that someday, in the not too distant future, we'll be able to make this trip really work. So, with that in mind, I'll give you a brief sketch of my background, just so you can see where I'm coming from, and then dive into the ideas of what I think is most important about aging in the world we live in today. I'm actually trained as a physician. I attended Harvard Medical School, and initially thought that I was going to have a career as an emergency room physician. And it was just seemingly by chance that I wound up taking a job in a nursing home or extended care facility here in the United States. And when I did so, the one thing I didn't count on and was amazed at was how quickly I fell in love with the work. I had really enjoyed and really wanted to be part of the excitement of the emergency room, but there was something deeper, something just more important and valuable about being with and taking care of elders. Again, I think this is probably something a lot of you share, the sense that in caring for elders, we're doing something that's very important. I did, here in the United States, however, observe that there were real problems with the way care was organized and the way it was being delivered. And I want to make a point here. It wasn't that there were bad people, and it really wasn't that people were doing bad things. It's that the system was not suited to the task of giving kind, gentle, loving care to elders. The system was set up and organized to ensure that tasks would be performed. And as I began to look at the system I was working in, I began to see that tasks reliably came before people. And I began to wonder what it would be like if we put people before tasks. So that was really the beginning of my career. At the beginning of my career, I started thinking and working on flipping that equation, putting people first and tasks second. The first major piece of work that I've been involved in, which I know many of you have trained in or are aware of, is the Eden Alternative. And I'd like to explain a little bit about where Eden came from and what it's really all about. And since I'm the inventor of Eden, I think you might benefit from hearing it from me. First off, we are at a decision point about the future of long-term care. We can either continue on our journey toward institutionalization and the operation of facilities, or we can choose an alternative. And the Eden Alternative concept really boils down to a very simple idea. Life is better in a garden. That no matter who you are, no matter where you grow up, it's better to live in a garden than in an institution. And so my simple question here in the United States, right from the beginning, has been, which is better, to live in a garden or in an institution? And the Eden Alternative just simply offers training, education, tools, books, ideas about how to make that shift from institution to garden. I'm really happy to say that the Eden Alternative is spread all around the world into Scandinavia and Canada, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. And the reason it's spread around the world is actually has to do with the fact that the problems elders face are very consistent all the world over. And the solutions, I think, are very similar too. Let's talk about those problems for a minute. Problem number one, loneliness. Even in a very busy city, even in a very busy street, even in a place where there's thousands of people, a person can be lonely. Loneliness doesn't mean that there's no one there. It means that we're lacking companionship, and that we need companionship to feel whole, to feel complete. And too many elders in too many countries are living lives without adequate companionship. Number two, helplessness. This is the idea, which actually applies to all of us of all ages. If you always get care and you never give care, then you will ultimately fall into the habit of helplessness. And we can see this in even very young babies. Even very young babies learn how to give care to their parents with little smiles or a little giggle. As we get older, hopefully, and we become more mature, we learn how to give care to our spouses and our own children. And as we get older still, we give care to our older relatives. And all through this process, it's always important that the act of giving care be balanced with the act of receiving care. There's two potential problems here I want to highlight for you. The first is sometimes people always give care and never receive care, and they can feel helpless. Sometimes people always give care and never receive care, and they can feel tired and exhausted. So both groups need to have better balance between the giving and receiving of care. The third point, or third problem, is boredom. And unfortunately, in the United States, this problem with boredom has often been tied together with lack of entertainment. And so there's been a lot of effort to entertain old people. I've actually found in my research that much more important than entertainment is the engagement of elders in things that they feel are important, that have value. So the example of a elder who's committed to a cause or a belief that's bigger than they are is a great way, perhaps the best way, to avoid boredom. Now, there's also issues related to aging that are tied specifically to our culture and our society. And I'm going to be speaking here mainly about the United States because I don't know the situation in Singapore. But see if any of this seems familiar or if any of it fits what you have identified. Here in the United States, we have a very severe problem with ageism. Ageism is a prejudice or stereotype against old age. And we see this, obviously, in situations where people make dismissive or demeaning comments about older people. We see this in jokes and stories that highlight, the weaknesses or limitations or memory troubles of older people. You've seen all this. But you can also see it in a culture that celebrates youth without reference to age. In other words, here in America, we find that many people are enamored of the idea of the youth being the paramount experience and age being something less than youth. And what I like to see, and what I believe, is that both youth and age have their own virtues, are important in their own ways. And what we need as a society is not for youth to rule over age or age to rule over youth, but for people of all ages to be seen as being worthy. So here in the United States, we find that this ageism problem really creeps into and is part of our healthcare system. We find that older people often don't get the proper kind of care because people make assumptions about them, about their worth and their value that may or may not be correct. Here in the United States, we find that the ageism issue creeps into public policy. And here in the US, our public policy right now is we're having a huge debate about what duty the young owe to the old in terms of Social Security and Medicare and programs that support older people. And what I'd like to say is this: our societies, Singapore, the United States, all countries in between and around the world, all of us are stronger and better when older people are seen as an integral, important part of society. A few years ago, I wrote a book called What Are Old People For? And here in the United States, when you write your book, you go on an author's tour. And one of the things that happens is you give interviews to newspapers and radio stations, television stations. And I don't know how it is in Singapore, but in the United States, many times the interviewer has not read your book. So you sit down and you're going to have a conversation with somebody who actually hasn't read the book. Well, when I sat down with this book, What Are Old People For?, my interviewers would almost always say, "Well, Dr. Thomas, can you tell me what are old people for?" And I loved that question because I had an answer. Old people are the glue that holds us together. And if you think about this for a minute, you can see it in your own families. The older generation is what unites the younger members of the family. And when that older generation passes on, the family is never the same again. It's old people who help us hold our neighborhoods together and our communities together. And I will say, it's old people who help us hold our nations together. So we can look at older people as an asset to our society. And this is where I'd like to kind of bring the conversation together. Over the years, I've worked with a funny, strange-sounding word that has been very important to me. The word is eldertopia. Now, that's English. That's taking two English words and putting them together. Elder, of course, meaning older person, but topia is part of the word utopia, and it means place where things are good. So imagine a society where elders were important to making life good. Imagine what it would be like to be a leader in such a society and making policies that ensured elders could live a life of dignity because elders were important for making life good. That's what a large part of my work here in the United States has revolved around. I'm very interested in building a new old age, one that can claim its own virtues, its own values, its own importance, one that can establish a place in society where the voices of elders can be heard. And in order to do this, we have to create systems and supports and professionals who can help elders have a good life. Now, here in the United States, I often connect this idea to what we do pretty naturally with children. We work to educate children, we work to help them grow up fit and strong and healthy, and we make that investment in the lives of children because we think it's important for our future. I just want to say this. I think that investing in the well-being of elders is important to the well-being of our society. So let's put it all together. Let's bring the pieces of what I've been talking about together. First off, there's a old age, which is an ancient human possession. Human beings have been growing old for a long, long time. What's new and different in our world is that more people than ever before are getting the opportunity to grow old. It's a beautiful thing. It represents success, not failure. Number two, old age has been changing all along. Old age is always changing. There's no one time when you can say that was the right old age. People have looked at old age differently in different circumstances and different periods of history because it's an important idea and we've got to get it right. So, to those who say, well, this is how it always was, or this is how it's got to be, but you can't change on things, I say, old age has always been changing. What's happening now is it's our duty to change old age and make it into something that is valuable to us today in the United States, in Singapore. In order to make these changes, we have to grab onto some big ideas. We have to be willing to sacrifice our commitment to the status quo and enter into some new, sometimes uncomfortable terrain. This is largely what the Eden Alternative has done. The Eden Alternative has established a new way of practicing that creates better outcomes for older people. And it's different than how we used to do it. And the courage to make that difference is really an important part of building a better future for people of all ages. Lastly, I want to return to this very important idea of ageism. In the United States, we deal routinely with a society that fails to see the worth and the value of older people. That may not be as true in Singapore, I'm not sure. But I do know that societies that have a worshipful approach to age, or youth, also damage the lives of older people. And this is what's important. We all have rhetoric or language that says old people are important. Of course we care about old people. But as the old saying goes, it matters much more what we do than what we say. So if I was with you right now, if I was able to be in the room with you, what I would be doing right now, after giving you this brief look into the work that I'm involved in and the ideas I think are important, is I'd be sitting down with you and hearing your stories, your comments, your questions. You know, this is the part that's missing. I mean, I can offer you some thoughts on my video, but it's really the exchange of ideas that's valuable. The United States has a lot it can learn from the society of Singapore. It has a lot it can learn from you. And I wish, and I hope to see the day come when we can be reunited, this time, face to face, and we can come together and exchange ideas and think about what makes a better world for people of all ages. So I will bid you farewell and return to my duties in taking care of my family, knowing that you will be doing the same, and knowing that I have friends and allies in Singapore, and I will go back to my responsibilities, knowing that someday I'll have the honor of being with you in person. Thank you so much. Take care. I'm Dr. Bill Thomas.